To get started on our reading of Homer, I thought what we'd do is concentrate on 10 of these 12,000 magnificent lines of the Odyssey and have a look at the opening 10 lines of the Odyssey. You see up here I've reproduced the Greek text. It's not expected in this class that you've already had Greek, though it would be a good thing to do in coming months and years. Who knows? Maybe you will learn ancient Greek if you don't already know it. And those of you that already have your ancient Greek, please do jump into the forum in the course and help us answer the questions that come up that make reference to the original language. I'll go ahead through and correlate the Greek terms such as they show up here in these opening 10 lines with some pieces of our translation that we're using for the class, the translation from Robert Fagles. Wonderful translation from a colleague up at Princeton from some years ago. Quite an amazing work in itself. So using Fagles as our guide, we'll jump into this Greek text. The first word in Homer's epic is the Greek word andra, which indeed means man. It is the word that means a male example of the human species. The Greeks had another word that meant the general example, an ungendered example of any human being, but an andra is a male gendered version of what the human species is all about. As the first word in the epic in the Greek, this tells us what the epic is all about. It is epic convention that that first word indicate the whole and most important theme of the story. I made reference to the Iliad and how it starts with the Greek word for rage, menos, that talks about a horrible, menacing rage that has to do with even divine rage. That's what starts off that epic, telling us that the Homer's representation of the Trojan War is going to have that as its focal point. Well, starting off his epic of the Odyssey with the Greek term andra, Homer tells us that this is going to be a story about what it is to be a male human being. The second term in the epic, moi. Homer brings himself in. He makes reference to himself in this pronoun. And what he wants to have happen is that someone should sing. Enepe is a way of giving a command to someone to say, you, other person out there, do the singing. And the person that Homer wants to be sung to is himself. Sing to me. Now, who's he calling on? Who does he want to go ahead and do the singing? This Greek term musa tells us, the muse. Homer's story, as he understands it, resides with this goddess, the muse. And she now is going to sing to him and use him as a conduit to spread her tale, her story, using him as a mouthpiece for that story to translate it for human beings. So this has a sense of divine inspiration to it. It's an old model. It's a tried and true kind of construction that the poets fall back on to say they're actually just mouthpieces for the gods. In some cultures or some historical contexts that we know, this will generate the idea that there's a sacred and perfect text which could never be changed because it came from the god. But in the Homeric case, that's not really true. It's understood. That's not how they think about it. They understand that muse is there as a inspirational helper that uses Homer's vocal cords as a way to transmit the divine voice. Yes, but it's not thought that what emerges is somehow perfect and unchangeable. Although it's pretty amazing, and most of the Greeks would have thought that it was pretty amazing. So Homer is asking the muse to sing to him about a man, an andra. The first descriptor that Homer decides to use to tell us about this man is that he's going to be a man of twists and turns. The Greek word polytropos there, you'll see the beginning palu, that means many. Some of you will remember from math class or wherever else you might have learned that prefix. And then tropos is a term that means turn, a twist or a turn. The man that we're going to learn about, this male version of the human species, is known to be someone who has many twists and turns. Now, that Greek term, polytropos, a wonderful translation that Fagles has chosen for it, but it means many other things as well. It means resourceful. You might get yourself into trouble, but you can always get out of trouble. You don't just take no for an answer. that you would just run into a problem and then shirk away from it. You have many ways at it. You can always get your way through some difficult situation and find your way out of it. Also, with the twistiness of Fagles' chosen translation, indicates an aspect of the Greek term that's very much present as well, which means that you're a little slippery. And maybe you have a kind of trickster characteristic to you. Odysseus is defined as a hero by his cleverness and his wiliness, but also he's kind of a wise guy. He sneaks around through things. He's a bit sneaky and crafty. So Odysseus is going to be a character that exhibits all the greatness of human wisdom, including the sides of human wisdom that lead to craftiness, sneakiness, and trickery. This male version of the human species is driven time and again off course. Time and again off course. This story that we're going to hear about what it is to be a human male talks about resourcefulness and also talks about displacement. Odysseus is fundamentally dislocated. He is out of place, not quite in the place he's supposed to be. This is an aspect of what it is to be a male human that Homer is going to explore with us. He once he had plundered the hallowed heights of Troy. So Odysseus is resourceful. He has a tremendous amount of wandering, and he also has a story in his background. He has a past. What it is to be an example of this human species is that you're going to be resourceful, you're going to be dislocated, and you're going to have a past. In Odysseus' case, this past is centered on Troy. What happened there is huge and stirs up an energy, negative and positive, that's going to drive the events in this epic and in much huge swath of Greek mythology. Once he had plundered the hallowed heights of Troy. Now, during this wandering, during this period of dislocation, Odysseus doesn't just shrink into himself, feel sorry for himself, and fearfully stay away from what's around him. He sees a certain amount of serendipity that's possible in this situation of being dislocated. There are lots of things to see out there in the world, and his core internal curiosity ramps itself up when he finds himself in this dislocated position. When he's out there, there are many cities of men for him to see. He's not fearful of people that are different or places that are different. He also is going to learn the minds of the people that he runs into in these many cities. When Odysseus runs into someone that doesn't think quite like him, he doesn't sit them down and lecture them and tries to change their mind and insist that his way of thinking about something is right and their way must be wrong. He's not a dogmatic man who comes in and is interested in different points of view only so that he can change them to match his. Odysseus is constantly curious about other ways of looking at the world. He assimilates those, listens to them, and brings them into his own character. This is what gives him his power and his ability to be resourceful. He knows all kinds of ways in and out because he's a wonderful student of how different people view the world. There's a kaleidoscopic array of viewpoints in the world out there. Odysseus fears none of them and learns from them all. Many pains he suffered, heartsick on the open sea. Odysseus is a man of suffering. He has a very intimate relationship with pain, difficulty, suffering, and also at the same time endurance. When he undergoes awful things, again, he doesn't just turn tail and feel sorry for himself. He bears up under them and presses forward. There is something about being one of these andra that is related also to the idea of suffering and enduring pain. When Odysseus endures pain, he fights back, fighting to save his life and bring his comrades home. Now, in our story earlier, in the earlier lecture, we talked about the nostos. You'll see here the Greek term here in its accusative form that has a different endpoint, noston, but that comes from the Greek nominative nostos, which means home, a homeward a journey that he is trying to bring his men on. So he's trying to move them to find their way home. And it's going to be a struggle to endure through all of these difficulties. But, and there's the Greek ala that changes direction, but he could not save them from disaster hard as he strove. His men are not quite up to the challenges that Odysseus himself is up to, and they succumb. Odysseus could not save them from the difficulties that awaited them. Suffering, challenges at every corner, Odysseus gets through them, but not his men. The recklessness of their own ways destroyed them all. The recklessness of their own ways. When you're a Greek male, an andra, being reckless is not a good thing. Yes, you're supposed to be fearless. Yes, you should not shrink back from difficult situations, but to walk in pell-mell into awful situations without thinking things through first, that counts as recklessness, and that's never a smart thing to do. Odysseus's men are reckless. They don't think through, and they pay a terrible, terrible price. They are indeed destroyed. So, spoiler alert, Homer's telling us all of the men are going to be destroyed. Odysseus alone is going to make it through. Now, what's the difficulty? What did they succumb to? What was the problem that they ran into? The blind fools, they devoured the cattle of the sun, and the sun god wiped from sight the day of their return. Now, you'll remember that in the Odyssey, there are lots of different episodes, and some of you will recall very famous ones. For example, the Cyclops, or maybe you'll remember the Sirens, or any of the other many episodes that Odysseus and his men get into. Cattle of the Sun is surely an important one, but it's not always the foremost one in people's minds. Homer, though, look what he's doing, is placing this episode right at the beginning, showing us what's really important. I mean, the whole epic is contained in these 10 lines. Why does Homer decide to place the cattle of the sun as the most prominent of these episodes? This is something we'll need to pay some attention to, and especially when we get to our discussion of Book 12, I'll do some talking about why it is that Homer might have placed this episode as a central one in his story. The men devour the cattle of the sun, and when they do, the sun god wipes their homecoming from sight. Homer then goes back to his muse and asks the muse to continue on, launch out on his story. Muse, daughter of Zeus, start from where you will. Begin from where you wish to begin, Muse, and get us started on our story. The story we're going to embark on, we're going to jump right into the middle. We get into the action, and we're going to fill in the backstory with recollections and flashbacks, and we'll move toward the future as the story carries on. But we're going to launch right into it from where the muse wants us to begin, which is right from the middle. And she indeed is a Theugater Dios. She is a daughter of Zeus. This muse is no small goddess. She's a daughter of Zeus himself. Then to close his opening, Homer brings the muse back into the story and asks again this word for sing, epe, and here also brings back himself. Sing for our time too. Sing also for us is the very literal way that the Greek works. Epe kai heimen, sing also for us. Homer brings in the first person pronoun again. In the first line, it was the first person singular. Homer is invoking himself to get involved in his own story, asking the muse to kick it going. By the end of the 10th line, Homer is saying, yes, first person, let's bring me in, but he includes us as well. The first person singular becomes a first person plural. So now all of us are invited to come along with Homer on this journey that is going to be his Odyssey. As the weeks come along in the next, in the opening weeks of this class, we're going to spend a lot of time with Homer. It's an amazing story. Off we launch on our own journey to learn from it and delight from it, and to get a window into what really makes myth tick, this concentration on the Odyssey and how its many twists and turns are going to be a kind of laboratory for us to understand many details of what makes Greek myth Greek myth. So pay attention as closely as you can in your reading. It's the great part of this course to spend time with Homer and the other magnificent poets we're going to spend time with. I think is one of the great joys. So just please be sure, as I said at the beginning of the course, be sure to give yourself time to enjoy it. From here on, off we launch on our journey.